Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalists of Arlington.
We choose.
We choose.
We choose to be
A liberal religious community.
Welcoming.
Welcoming to all.
We encourage each other
on our spiritual journeys.
Support one another
through the changes in our lives.
And challenge the excesses
and injustices of our time.
Called to love.
To love.
To love.
And upheld by joy.
We live our faith.
This morning, like many Sunday mornings, we joined here together to pray, to give space for the quiet feelings we hold in. Let us take a moment now to relax into this moment. For many of us, things continue to intensify. This coming holiday can bring on many feelings of belonging or of isolation. It can be hard to remember how to be at home, how to feel at peace, especially as the yearly performance of family dinners swirls around us. It has not been easy to sit with the chaos swinging to and fro around us. There is political unrest, hope, and fear in every other headline. Confusion and doubt often leads first, with so much information trying to manipulate us. Highest truth, how can we trust what we see anymore? How can we trust things will be okay? We ask for your help to lead us toward what we can do to make our world a better place, to what we can do for our own communities, and to what we may need to do for ourselves to stay strong. Source of creation, let us not forget the small joys despite the pain. The smell of croissants in the oven, the peace of simply washing the dishes after a good meal, the importance of being together with those we love, even among our potential frustrations with them. Great being of sentiment, remind us that our patience with the chaos around us is for our own sake, not just for everyone else too. Help us hold the difficulty and the strange with grace. With all this in mind, let us take 2 minutes of silence together.
I'm thinking about whatever's happening or happened in the kitchen where we whisked away all those vegetables. That some teens and teachers and whoever else might be scrubbing and peeling and throwing veggies in the pot to make a soup that we might enjoy at coffee hour. And those of you far away, the soup may require your own magic. It will be however it is, which will probably be delicious. But it's a relief to me here in the pulpit. The soup is on its way. Will you join me in a deep breath? While the soup bubbles, I've planned to spend some time with you and this story of stone soup. I'll explore it today in part to explore our shared value of generosity. This is a story that has lasted and been retold many ways, many times. Almost every week in religious education, there is a story that we use to center our learning. It is good to return to these stories both as children and as adults, knowing that there's a wisdom carried in them across time. Before I started down the formal path to ministry, I worked for an integrated preschool for kids with autism. In this preschool, there happened to be a particular version of Stone Soup on the children's bookshelf. Unlike the story we shared today, in this version, the traveler, after coaxing ingredient after ingredient from an old miserly woman's pantry, the traveler runs off with the whole meal without a drop left for the traveler's host. I was scandalized. This is not the moral of Stone Soup. So in preparation for today, I reviewed many versions of this tale, unable to find the offending version. I've even questioned whether that version was just a figment of my imagination. But what emerged from this study, however, of the many modern retellings of the old European folktale is a common set of themes, characters, movements, and morals. In each story, an outsider is arriving. In our telling today, a young and hungry traveler with a magic stone. Or perhaps, is it 3 soldiers on their way back from a war, finding themselves in a strange land? Or perhaps 2 contemporary teens hoping to bring their whole community together after a devastating flood. Or perhaps 3 monks roaming the countryside. And in each story, whoever arrives in need of a meal encounters a community that is closed off. Perhaps there's been a famine, as we rendered it today, or they're emerging from a time of war. Perhaps it's just that the village is distrustful of outsiders, foreigners, used to their own ways. Sometimes in these retellings, the villagers have lots of food and hide all of it away. Other times, each individual community member has just 1 or 2 things, not nearly enough to spare or share. When the outsider and the community meet, the request for food is denied. Politely sometimes, or cruelly, truthfully, or with a little half lie or excuse, but denied all the same. When have we been unable to meet the eyes of a person in need? And when have our own prayers for help gone unanswered? These are fundamental vulnerabilities we open up, both asking for what we need from others and sharing with others something that is ours. Let me say that again. Asking and giving are core risks taken in community. Asking for what we need, giving what we can. This community, when we open up into community, it's just such a lived, complicated experience. And it's probably based on 10 million little encounters and experiences we might have had. And how my day is going might impact whether I choose to give to that cause, or say yes to that committee assignment, or ask for help finishing dinner prep because my legs are so sore. And we have no idea what might have been going on for those villagers in Stone Soup, what might have closed off their hearts to the give and take. I wonder what calluses and scars grow across those well-worn places where we have tried to open ourselves to encounter. Now, whatever the particulars, the traveler is rebuffed, told there is no food, no lodging, and then the traveler declares, Well then, we must make stone soup. When you hear this invitation, you know the strategy, or is it magic? But imagine how ludicrous it must have sounded. Soup from a stone. Fancy that. Meanwhile, the cauldron, available. The recipe, mysterious. The fire is lit. The water is fetched and boiled. The whole thing is kind of witchy. And I imagine them lifting the smooth, round stone high in the air before it's plopped in the pot. Off we go. Now, stewing on this metaphor, soup from a stone, a magic stone, I can't help but point out to you that there is a specter overshadowing things. There is an unavoidable reality of great hunger and famine all across the world throughout our human history. Hunger and famine that have driven the types of encounters that this story might be trying to speak into. And sure, maybe not soup from a stone, but wasn't there soup from boiled leather shoes in the most desperate of times? Against this shadow, what the traveler, no, not traveler, let's call her what she is. She's a sojourner. She's a traveler that's coming to stay for a time before departing in a strange land. What the sojourner brings with the promise of stone soup in our story is a hope. I offer you a way out of no way. Or maybe I can offer you something that won't require you to give anything up. Which is true at first. At this point, her hope relies on the strength of a double take. Stone soup? What? Though I ask you, have you ever successfully boiled a stone for a really long time? Like, probably nothing would happen. But what if it did? Or at least, would doing so impart some sort of taste to the soup? Or some mineral benefit? I don't know. But maybe on the strength of that possibility, the villagers all crane their necks, hoping to see. Coaxed into a vision that they've already provided the necessary infrastructure for. A cauldron, the water, the fire. Or, here at First Parish, the building, the lights, the heat. But anyway, as I describe this sojourner, I guess I'm dancing around avoiding using a particular word. Tricked. In the story of stone soup, does the traveler trick the old miserly woman? Or does the sojourner cast a vision of bounty for all? Which is it? Certainly, that trickster from the corrupted version I spoke about from the preschool where I worked in was not just a figment of my imagination. I have found versions of him sprinkled throughout the earliest recorded versions of this history. Or was it a pre-story before the story of stone soup as we know it emerged? For instance, in 1700, there's a pamphlet that I read published with a story of a friar tricking an old woman by heating up her whetstone in a pan. And the only remedy for avoiding burning the pan, I don't actually know in this story why this is the issue, but it's the issue. The only way to avoid that is by adding a bunch of eggs and butter into the pan. That's what he convinces her of. And then he makes off with that whole meal once it's done. So it's more stone scrambled eggs than stone soup. And elsewhere, there's a version of the story where there's a fake pilgrim from a Swedish story from the 1800s, and that fake pilgrim swindles an inn with the promise of some pebble stew. So the story of the trickster is out there in the record. And the story of the trickster floats too in the cultural waters we swim in today, along with stories of certain people who we say might mooch or be a moocher, or take advantage, or swindle. These stories might come from our personal experience or the reporting of others, and it makes us wary, perhaps. A wariness that may well be hard-won, but it's a wariness that comes with a cost. When I, for instance, notice a prejudice or a just-so story I'm telling about someone, what are those stories I'm telling covering over or not allowing my eyes to lift and see? But unlike the trickster, leaving the trickster over here, what the sojourner does is no trick. And while the conclusion of this very sermon may in part be, the magic of the stone was the friends we made along the way, sure, there is decidedly nothing supernatural happening in this story. Instead, the magic lives in how that vision for stone soup unfolds. It's compelling, it's inviting, it's responsive to those who participate. And how the sojourner invites each villager with an abiding trust and openness, as if she is saying, this thing we're creating together is coming along so well, but what might make it even better? Just the thing you have to give. I love, for instance, the way that Marsha Brown's version of Stone Soup successfully escalates the vision. First, stones like these generally make good soup, but if there were carrots, it would be so much better. And then later in the story, if we only had a bit of beef and a few potatoes, this soup would be good enough for a rich man's table. And then later, if we only had a little barley and a cup of milk, this soup would be fit for a king himself. At this point, we all here, having heard the story and hearing me talk about it, could probably distill down a little guidebook for ourselves. It would be called the Stone Soup Guide for the Community Building. And it might list several strategies, like start from what is already present and available, like a cauldron and a fire pit. Cast a compelling and narrow vision at first. You're not asking for beef bones on day one. Invite people in based on their gifts, really trying to see them for who they are. Make sure people can say yes to the ask and understand how that ask connects to the whole. Stay open to how the vision will be transformed with each new contribution to the pot. Celebrate the wins and take the lessons home. Speaking of celebrations of all of our accomplishments today, I'm just recalling what Aaron shared at the beginning of our time together, of the great stone soup endeavor that is the Harvest Moon Fair. Stone Soup at its heart is a story of transformation, from stone to soup, from scarcity to plenty, from closed off to open. In our real day-to-day lives, I'd argue that that transformation isn't a one-and-done conversion. We rather live this transformation as if we are breathing, perpetually opening up and then perhaps closing in again, and opening up once more to community. There's a minister I so admire, the Reverend Elizabeth Wen, and she offers these words that so capture this metaphor for community in her much-beloved reflection called Show Up Hungry. Reverend Elizabeth writes, "I'm not always doing my best self in the communities I've loved. I've shirked dish duty at Lucy Stone and missed weddings in my hometown. I've dropped out when I was needed and showed up full of pettiness and exhaustion. The wonder of accepting love is only made evident when we're allowed to shed the shiny and let the sourness show. Our communities of spirit are only real because we show up late, expecting to be fed, because we both give and get. Because we bring our tart and our sweet, our gifts and our struggles. We need lemon in the lentils, rice vinegar in the sushi, a squeeze of lime in the chilada, and some acid in our communities. Without it, our communities are superficial. With no acid, we are one note, monotone. Our vulnerabilities, our bits of brokenness, bring life to our relationships." End of quote there. This stone soup practice of generosity, to show up hungry, in need to community, and also to show up ready to share what you can. I think it captures a universalism that we need to champion today. Not in our sameness do we come to community, but in our delicious admixture that we embody in beloved community. Stone Soup is not a ghost story, but if you'll humor me, I think there are 3 ghosts that metaphorically haunt the story. I've told you about 2 of them, and it's possible that all 3 ghosts are sort of heads of the same beast. But I'm mixing my metaphors here. The first ghost, I might say, is the shadow of those hard human histories we talked about, against which we have to cast hope as community, almost in spite of or on behalf of those who have lost and suffered. There's another ghost here that lives with Stone Soup, and it's that haunting of our interpersonal engagements, when our prejudgments or hardened hearts must be loosened and stretched with wonder. And to speak of the third ghost that I see here, it's that ghost that coaxes us to turn inward in fear. There have been times, and certainly will be times, when just looking out for me and mine is the only way imaginable. But I hope that's not where the story ends. This persistent truth of universalism, that no one is outside the circle of concern, and each of us carry a spark of the sacred, is like a stone in your shoe. An itching, sometimes uncomfortable reminder. Our valuing of universalism invites us to pay attention to the gifts and struggles of those all around us. Into this soup I've been stirring here, there's so much more to be added, though probably not much more from me now. But there are directions where I invite you to bring your ingredients, perhaps after sitting with this story. You might think how we at First Parish can continue to expand our circle of care and concern amidst a broken world. What do we need to lift our eyes to? We too might think, after hearing this story, how we thank and appreciate and notice and really, really notice and appreciate what other people all around us here are doing to make this community so special and meaningful and welcoming. Just as the sojourner noticed what each ingredient added to the pot brought, so too we can build that muscle of appreciation and noticing. And lastly, I invite you also to think how we might each lend a voice or add an ingredient to the vision that this community casts together, bringing what is ours, dropping it in the pot, and here's the real thing, knowing that it will be transformed for having made our soup together, and yet may be just the thing that we came to community in need of. May we continue to expand our circle of concern, opening up to the needs of others and ourselves. May we continue to value and appreciate the varied and different contributions each of us make in the communities we are a part. And may we each feel invited and empowered to lend our voice in the co-creation that is beloved community. May that be so.